Yeah, well, I've started recording, so
Okay.
let's see
Okay.
here. Let's see if I did that right. I think I've got it right. So the question is it better when I record it so we're all on the camera at the same time, or is it better when I record it so it only sees who's speaking? I think it's better when we're all on, right? That's better.
Probably. That
Yeah,
way you can see me go, no.
yeah, yeah. And you got, but the problem is you can't use
Okay.
sandwich. You can't, right? You can't like
Yeah,
talk
true.
and then shut up and
True.
go really quietly.
Lunch.
So, Josh, uh, I know you're putting on the spot. You're not used to being. You probably watch a lot of podcasts, but you're not used to being on one. Maybe am I right? Or
Yeah. I don't really spend a whole lot of time watching podcasts, but I do listen to the housemates listening to podcasts all the time.
there you go. There you go. Okay, well, tell us just a bit about yourself, just so we know who you are.
I'm Josh Trevisiol. I've been working in 3D for well over a decade now. Just kind of fell into it out of school and just kept going with it. And well, now I do it for a living, and that's pretty cool. I do a lot of programming on the side as well. I like to dig into AI work and things like that. Do a little bit of drawing, but mostly it's 3D modeling and like character animation and technical design. So
And what tools do you use at work?
so I use, I mean, really whatever I need to use. So I use Autodesk Maya. I use Autodesk 3ds Max. I use the whole Substance suite for my texturing pipeline. And I'm learning Blender because it's a really up and coming piece of software and it's being funded very largely right
Yeah,
now. So yeah.
yeah. And Tony, you use CAD stuff. I know you've done quite a bit of work with that. I don't know if you've used 3ds Max, but you might be familiar with some of these tools.
Yeah, 3ds Max a little bit. Definitely not consider myself very good at 3D. I'm
Yeah,
excellent at 2D. I can do anything there. I personally find it a lot faster, but
yeah.
it definitely has its limitations. So the 3D is really, really cool to see coming along.
Yeah, well, most of the stuff you're doing is probably 2D stuff where it's cutting out of
Yeah,
plywood or carbon fiber or something like that,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, 2.5D machining where you basically go over to a certain point, drop to a defined depth, and then you run around a perimeter. Not a lot of 3D machining where you're actually changing all three axes in the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do a lot of 3D machining,
Yeah.
but just different technology, different needs.
Yeah. Well, okay. So this is, and everyone I think already knows what I do, and I'm not going to try and explain it, but Josh and I have worked together for a few years, and it's just like I said, a very, very talented person to make 3D models of things. He has an eye for seeing something in 2 dimensions and making it work in 3 dimensions, and that's exactly what we needed on this project here. And what I would like to do, Josh, is kind of explain to us what the limitations are, just briefly, because when we first started this, I kind of naively felt like, you know, well, I don't know that I had magical thinking about it, but I kind of hoped that we'd get more out of like a photogrammetric approach where we'd be able to just kind of put these images into a process and derive a 3D shape. But it doesn't work as easily as I had hoped it would, though we've used that for other things. So what are the limitations of trying to sort out what the Bulldog looked like in 3D from looking at the 2D photos?
Essentially what I've had to do is do a little bit of digital archaeology, digital reconstruction, trying to figure out, okay, what camera lens was the guy using? Just in general, these are photos of photos sometimes, or photos of photos of photos, and you get that stack of shearing and distortion uh, because they're just so old. Um, so it's a lot of figuring out um, exactly how to get the lens information and then how to use that information, plug it into a camera, simulate essentially the same camera that the guy was using in the 3D software, and then you just try and line up the plane as best you can to the scene. So you project the image that you want to line it up against on the background of the camera plane. So it's just a persistent lineup with the camera image, and you just line up your plane with that. And
Yeah.
we've done some interesting things with the shadows, and I'll let you get to that point later if you want to
Yeah, no, that's a really good rundown. So the naive person, like I can be naive sometimes, even though I know technology, you hope that you just throw this stuff into an AI program and it kind of sorts it out. And like you said, it doesn't turn out we can do all that work we wanted. But there were some images where we had straight lines where you can then make some mathematical calculations on and figure things out. And as you mentioned, there's some shadows that are very helpful. On a couple of the days where they took these photos, the days were clear and we could see the shadow. And one of the biggest controversies, Tony, is how much sweetback it had, or did it have sweetback? And one of the things that's going to come out of this conversation is we feel very confident there was sweetback. There's no question after looking at it, kind of cutting to the chase. But we get that from looking at the photos and doing an analysis. I'm going to show real quick, Tony, these images that you've seen before a few times, where we have these different drawings. This is just to kind of run it down for people who are coming into this new, but this is the drawings by Kirka, and this shows sort of the classic idea of what this airplane looked like from the top. And then eventually we have a guy named Clements who came along and gave us this view. And what we're going to propose after looking at the photos is that this view is more correct. The sweep back in the wing is just more correct. The spars sweeping back must be correct. There's a lot of controversy about that because of things that are in the historic record. But it seems like when you look at the actual pictures, it pretty clearly supports the view that this guy Clements had. And I think what we do now is just kind of walk through that. And when Tony's the one who's really got to make, he has to have drawings that we can make an airplane out of. At some point, we have to be able to this is what the plane looked like. This is what we're building. So that's why, Tony, you're here to kind of review the work. And I think, Josh, what you do is just kind of walk us through the process you went on and show me what you showed me the other day and just kind of convince us that the airplane looks a certain way.
So one of the things I want to kind of touch on is the difficulty of some of these photos, of matching some of these photos, especially the photos like we talked about that don't have viable geometry in the background. So there's a certain amount of creativity that has to be exercised in getting things to line up in a reasonable way. So that's finding straight edges wherever you can, drawing straight lines between objects that are relatively straight to each other. And so I had to go back and do that with this photo in particular, because there's just not enough background geometry to do a proper kind of planar breakdown.
Maybe we should explain a little bit why this particular photo is so significant to us.
Yeah. So this photo is really significant because of the shadow. The shadow, it appears there's a lot of sweetback in the shadow. And so we wanted to see if we could mimic that shadow or recreate that shadow in a 3D scene to see, okay, well, does the Kirka model have that same shape shadow, or does the Clements kind of represent that shadow better? And so what I've done here is I have the Kirka aircraft right here loaded in and relatively matched. This is about as good of a match I could do on the aircraft in the scene, given the lack of background geometry. But the goal here was to line it up to the floor plane and just see what shapes the shadows make. And so we've got some floor plane here, and I've got my shadows I can turn on. And I can see here, I lined up the sun angle and everything, and I can see here the shape of the Kirka wing. It's still very straight and just kind of a flat front end on the front of that wing.
And then just let me jump in for people who aren't following very well with this. What you've done is you've taken the drawings that I showed in 2D and you've made a 3D model out of those drawings. And now you've put that 3D model in your 3D program up against the photo. And I know you explained this, but just to make sure everybody gets it, you've now put a sun up in the air that would be at the right angle given the shadows in this picture. And you're comparing what shadows we made by that shape with what the picture shows, right? Okay, go ahead.
Correct. Yeah. And so, like you were saying, I took the Kirka and the Clements and I modeled basic forms out of them. And I used those forms in here with the sun angle to kind of get the shadow recreation. And so with that, we've got the Kirka with its more front shaped, or I guess the flat front of the wing. And then I'm going to switch over here. I'm just going to switch the fuselage out for the Clements. And we can see that the Clements shape follows, if I turn off the ground plane real quick, we can see that the Clements shape follows that ground shadow really closely in the actual shape of the shadow.
Yeah, it's eerily close.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder how he did such a good job, because if you look at this, all the photos that we probably have more photos now than anybody's ever had to look at and review. And it would be very hard to figure out what this thing looked like in 3D. But he used an in-flight photo as well that really helped him out. I think there was one photo of it kind of in knife edge flight, banking towards the camera, away from the camera, and it really helped. But this photo is the most conclusive, I think.
Yeah, it would definitely, if we had a photo that had a shadow that was as sharp as this with better background geometry, I would be able to say 100% for certain, this is Clements or this is Kirka. There's still some variability in what we can really be certain about, but it definitely lends itself more towards the Clements wing variation here.
And eagle-eyed viewers out there will notice that the tail doesn't match up and the wing doesn't exactly match up.
Yeah.
And the wing, maybe because some of the geometry that's described by Clements isn't quite right. Who knows? The tail. What do you think? Is that just a distortion in the picture? What do you think is going on with that?
It could very well be issues with the actual camera lineup. Like if you look, the shadow doesn't line up perfectly, right? And obviously the Kirka doesn't line up very much at all with the shadow. But that could ultimately come down to, I was a pixel or two off when I was getting my data for the screen projection for the camera, and those little things those are the variables that we kind of have to deal with, the errors that we have to accept a little bit of when we're doing this kind of process.
So there you go, Tony, right there. What do you think? I'm just looking at that. I just see Clements drawings all the way.
Yeah, I don't know how. I'm sure somebody could argue with it, but given this evidence, I mean, so the 3D models are based right off of Clements' drawings, and I mean they're surprisingly good, and the Kirka drawings both. So I don't know how anybody could argue with that.
Yeah, well, I see it the same way. I do notice some of the problems we still have, and Josh has been working on those as well. But let's go from here. Let's go to another photo. You have other photos we could look at. Are there any photos where the Kirka drawing looks more correct than Clements?
Yes. Let's go ahead and pull it out. I actually notated earlier. So
because the reality is, Tony, I'm sure you know that neither of these drawings are perfect. So that somewhere they got little bits right here and there, and it's kind of hard to say that if you do the Clements one, I think you're closer, but neither of them are perfect. So what we have to do at the end of the day is make our own drawing that matches the aircraft, that matches what Josh sees.
Well, we did see some errors with like fuselage shape, the overall shape, I remember.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. So what I've got here. Yeah. This one, there's a decent amount of geometry in this shot. It was very, very helpful in this photograph.
And explain to people how you use that geometry. I see the rafters and the floor lines. How do you use that without going to
anywhere
too much science?
Anywhere. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really software holds your hand with a lot of this nowadays.
Yeah.
There's software that really, as long as you know how to use the software, I mean, you can do a lot of these things. So wherever there's a straight line that's perpendicular to another straight line, we can use that to kind of derive a coordinate plane, and we use that to help determine the field of view or the focal length of the lens, and maybe other lens distortion things like the sensor size and things like that. And those are really important to actually matching the 3D model to the photo, because if you don't have if you don't know what's distorting the plane through the lens, then you can't really match it very well. So what I got here is I've got.
Hey, can you turn that off just real quick, actually, Josh? I like that. I just want to say I like that guy's hat.
How do I?
That guy, the guy on the right there. I like his hat. I just want to say that. Okay, go ahead.
Oh yeah. Oh, I thought you meant turn off the screen share. Okay. No, I almost did that.
No.
Yeah, I like that guy's hat. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. I'll turn it to wireframe so you can kind of see what's going on here. This one is really neat because the tail lines up a lot better, and I think that's because of the better matched geometry from the rafters and whatnot we have up there. And we get this front wing that lines up really well, but the rear, the right wing in the rear doesn't really line up very well. And that could just be, a slight placement error of the aircraft, or I don't know. But this is the Clements, and it matches pretty all right. And then this one is the Kirka. Now the Kirka, this wing doesn't line up quite so well, and these planes are in the exact same position as each other. So I didn't move one plane and match it separately.
Yeah.
I have the planes lined up right on top of each other, and then I position them, like average them out their positions. So each one's going to be a little bit off in its own ways because it's an averaged position.
All right. So real quick, I'm just going to throw out the theory that one of the wings has sweep back and not the other. What do you think? Clearly.
Do you want to fly in circles?
Yeah, it's a racer.
All right. Sorry.
Okay.
Don't mind me. Don't mind me.
Yeah.
No, you're good.
Interesting how much thicker the cord is at the gull section in the Kirka there. I mean, it definitely looks.
Yeah,
The leading edge looks good, and then the trailing edge is quite a bit thicker.
And both of them, the goal is too shallow of an angle. It looks like on both of them.
Yeah, one of the issues that I still have with the drawings is that the goal doesn't have a lot of very detailed. There's not like a airfoil shape for the goal that's defined. It's just kind of averaged between the end airfoil on where the wing meets the goal, that curve right there, and then the curve we see down with the fuselage where the kind of chassis frame comes up there. So there's not an actual definition for that airfoil, which has caused me a little bit of trouble. So that could be a mistake on my part, and that we'll need to refine that and make sure that the goal is properly shaped as well. But I think they would both have that. As you can see, this one's got that thickness there too. So yeah, this one, I would say that the Kirka is a little bit more lined up, but that's only because the wing in the rear lined up. Like I said, the front wing doesn't line up quite so much with the Kirka as well as the Clements did here. So there's some variability in this one. So this one is by far the one that lines up the best. And this is right now displaying the Clements.
Yeah.
And this is where I realized either I've lined it up incorrectly, the wing is too high. I mean, that could be. There's a couple of things that could be on the Clements on this one.
Well, one thing that I can see in this photo is the washout, which the original aircraft did not have, and Clements actually added that based on his decision that it needed it. So I can see that, and washout to the viewers is a twist of the wing that decreases the angle of attack or decreases the angle of incidence as you go outward from the root to the tip of the wing. Actually, a twist in the wing, and you can see if you look at this. Unless I'm mistaken here, I think I can see that washout in that left wing panel as I go towards the tip and look at it. But the real plane did not have washout, at least as far as we could tell. And I actually remember have a memory of talking to Vern Clements about his drawing and how he had added the washout, even though the original didn't have it. I think there's a note in his drawing that says that. So I'm confident that would help some of these out. If we took that twist out, it might make it line up a little bit better.
Yeah. The problem for me came about when I lined up the Kirka, or when I turned on the Kirka with this,
because that lines up perfectly.
Because this one lines up so close, it's scary. Obviously, there's still some goal issues.
Yeah.
And it made me think, if this one lines up, I really should go back. I need to go back. I need to try and get a closer match on some of those others. The shadow one, kind of, I'm still convinced that it's the Clements, because that shadow shape, the way that the sun angles down, that's kind of hard. That gives us almost a top-down view. That shadow gives us almost a top-down view of the wings. And so it really makes you want to go back and make sure of some of those other matches as best.
One thing to keep in mind when we go through this is that when they made these drawings, they actually took these photos. And I went through a class like this of some kind. I can't remember what, it must have been drafting class of some kind in high school or junior high. And you actually go through and you draw lines, and you kind of figure out what the 3D shape is. You project it into 2D, and that's how we do it now, in your software. But it used to be people did this by hand, and it's possible this is a drawing that was used for that, though it wouldn't explain why the goal doesn't match. But you might run into a photo that matches one of them perfectly because it would happen to be one of the drawings that one of these artists used. Just a thought.
Yeah, and that did come to mind if it was a photo that they used specifically for that drawing. Yeah. Okay,
so are there any other photos with shadows that would be helpful, or because you have to have a nice clear day to get a harsh,
I have to have a nice
shadow.
clear day, and the only one I was able to get that nice clean match on was the one I previously shown. Yeah.
What about the one that was the in-flight photo? Do you have that one handy? We had talked about that one before.
I don't know if I have that one handy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because we kind of did that one on the fly in the call last time.
Yeah, I think I've got that. Let me see if I've got it.
If you've got a screenshot of it, that'd be great.
So this is a photo of the aircraft rounding a pylon, obviously a knife edge. We're seeing the bottom of the airplane. You can see the struts coming out of the fuselage to the wing. It's a little hard to make out the leading edge of the wing because this is a white 6 that's on the bottom of the wing, and then just the way the shutter and everything worked, it bloomed out a lot of the wing detail. But you look at the leading edge of the wing, and this is the Clements drawing made into a 3D model and positioned in the same place, the same way. And then if we go to the Kirka drawing, this is what it would look like in that orientation. So there's the Kirka and there's the Clements. Different people, it's funny because I look at it and think, well, it's obviously this way, and other people look at it and think it's the other way. But I think this is pretty clearly, to me, looks closer to the Clements drawing. Tony, what is I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm going to say it looks like Clements.
I'm in agreement. It looks like Clements to me.
Yeah, because I just don't see that this matches the leading edge at all of this wing, or this wing. You can't quite see the leading edge. You can if you squint, but it's hard to see. I can see it on my monitor. You might not see it at home.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still convinced it's the Clements, and so I don't want to introduce inherent bias into my work, but I do want to make sure that what I'm working on is accurate. So
yeah, it has to be.
Both still.
It has to be. So moving on from the sweep back, which I think at this point we feel like Clements has it closer, and you're still going to pursue all the avenues you have. I think the audience understands that it's an imperfect science. We have these images; they're distorted. There's no real way to know. You can't go backwards and solve how the distortion changed the projection of the image to 2D unless you know what the lens details were. We're not going to know what lens. It's just not possible. So you're going to have to make some guesses. And I think you did all you could to research what lenses could have been used and what they could have been like. I heard you don't have to go through it, but
correct.
You're very conscientious on this. You've done all you can. What else about it? We talked about the tail maybe doesn't match up. Which is a concern. What about the fuselage? Does it seem like we have in the drawings, are either of them correct in terms of the fuselage?
There's some bits around the canopy. It's mostly in the front profile, the way that it kind of raindrop shapes a little bit. Mm-hmm. Just in how the sides of the canopy drop off to straight versus how much they curve around. There's some things that are weird about that, but I've been mostly able to, I think, resolve some of that just by taking a closer look at some of the drawings and modeling a little bit more meticulously. Yeah.
Okay, so we have to get that resolved. And then there's also the questions we had about you showed me the other day, some images where you're maybe getting deeper into this than anyone else ever has, except for the original designer. So you're noticing some things about the design, like the that canopy piece that you were showing me. Can you show that to us? I'll let you take over again here. I'm making you the host again.
The weird thing I noticed is that we've got over here on the fuselage where the canopy connects, we've got this kind of body line here that comes down at a 90-degree angle right there. But the canopy is a nice curved edge right there. And I noticed that was a bit funky in how it sits, and you can see here, I don't know if you can see my mouse.
Yes.
But you can see here, it comes down at a 90-degree angle, and then the canopy is curved line. So there's this weird kind of body line gap right there.
A triangle.
That's not really filled. Yeah.
And if you go back to that top piece, that on your left, that piece there, if you look at it, there's a little jog, a little like,
almost looks like that would go up underneath the sheet metal or something.
Yeah, it does, but it's not the same it doesn't match. Like the two don't match each other, the two sides. Right. I look at it and I don't.
It could be a pixel or something because this image is so.
It could be. It's probably also just doesn't match because they just made it fit. But if you go up, if you back out just a little bit, Josh, and go up, one of these pictures, that one above your mouse right now, to your right now. No, there you go.
This one.
Look, yeah, if you look at that way that piece fits and the seam for the goal, look at how sharp. See that shadow?
Oh,
that
yep.
shadow line touches that canopy piece. On the other side, it doesn't seem to do that as much from what I could see. So I think there's just something about how they built it just didn't quite all fit together, and they just had to make it, fit. I mean, I'm sure you've never had to do
you
that.
should
Tony.
probably go back to 1932 and point that out. You'd get slapped in the face by the poor
Hey,
guy building that thing.
Hey, this is about understanding what
This
it looks
doesn't
like.
line up right here. I built this whole airplane in 8 weeks. You son of a.
It's not so much that. It's just trying to understand how it comes together. Yeah, you're horrible to me.
This one really shows it off. There's this little arch here, but it's not reflected on the other side as much. Yeah.
That radius is really interesting on the leading edge of the canopy.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if they didn't originally have the idea was the whole skirt of the canopy was going to fit up underneath there. But what they found is when they tried to kind of pop it out, it didn't work when you're trying to engage that much all at once.
Well, yeah, I agree with you that if that tab goes underneath that sheet, then the curved cutouts make really good sense because you're trying to you couldn't get the corners under if you think about how it would work, right? Yeah. So that's what was going on there. I don't know if, I guess the point is not to crap all over their work, but just to point out that we need something that looks nice and probably is better than that. They put this together in a short period of time. That probably wasn't the best thought out part of the aircraft, really.
Yeah, for sure.
And then there's also you were noticing that there's that cutout, that hole there where you get your arm in, it looks like, to latch it, I guess. We don't.
Are you talking about this cutout right here?
Yeah. If you look at the picture, that spot where your mouse was over just a second ago, right there. I don't know if that was. I mean, it must be a latch, I guess, unless it's the only other thing I think of is. Well, I don't want to guess. What do you think that is, Tony?
Well, I remember Jim Jenkins was talking about that, and he thought for a while it was some kind of a fuel cap.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, I was thinking it looks like a fuel cap to me. Yeah.
But then he had some more details on that, and I can't remember what they were. So might be
the fuel tanks are inside that part of the fuselage, aren't they?
Yeah, but you wouldn't have one there. You'd put it at the highest point when you're trying to fill it. Because otherwise, if that leaked at all, you'd be losing gas all the time because it's so low.
Yeah,
you have a lot of fuel above that thing.
It does look like a cap though, and it doesn't look like a latch at all. And also that hole in the top piece there, you wouldn't really line up with that. Your hand would be too far inside to engage that, right? Whatever it is. And it looks like there's one on the other side. Looking at that picture on the other side of Russ Thaw there, I think I see the same kind of shape.
Kind of right there.
Tony, I guess they must have.
Look at that divot.
They probably picked it. They probably picked it up and put it on its nose before they filled up with gas, and then they.
There you go. Or I mean, the other thing is it could be a totally separate tank, and has nothing to do with the others. They're not all fed together, which would be just a valving nightmare. But it could be. They didn't want the fuel that far aft if they could avoid it, and so they that was a separate tank. They'd fill different. I don't know. All guesses. No. It's just a wag at this point. The cowling's interesting. Can you zoom in on the cowling pictures? I'm going to point at the screen.
I don't know which ones are the cowling
upper
pictures.
Upper left right now.
Upper left. These ones.
Yeah. I just kind of wanted to glance over those and look at the differences in the. But the kind of center butt left side is where they had it, where they taped them off at that point. And then the others, it's open. That detail on the interview with Bob Hall was really interesting, talking about they lost 6 miles an hour when they taped those over because Jimmy Doolittle said, "Oh, you got to get rid of those. It's costing you speed," and then it ended up not costing him speed. But
there wasn't enough time to fix it, unfortunately for him.
Fix it,
yeah. Yep. All right, Josh. Any other interesting things you've uncovered?
No, I'm just digging into it every single day. So I'll find more things, I'm sure.
So directly below your mouse now. Stop right there. Go straight down. Down one more. There you go. Well,
This
no,
one?
down. Sorry, I also see my mouse in the picture. I was screwing that up.
Oh, okay.
So down one and to the right, bottom right hand, right there.
This one.
And then on that one. So that's really interesting. I'm not sure. I mean, I tend to see sweep in that one, in that picture. I mean, it looks like they have no dihedral or very, very little dihedral, but I kind of see some sweep. What have we compared this picture at all with some of the other stuff with our model?
I have not matched this picture yet. I might be able to. There's a nice horizontal horizon line with this picture, but there's no line perpendicular to it, so
Okay.
it'd be a little bit difficult.
What
I
about the
could
hanger
maybe
door on the bottom
use.
left? On the left. Or the
It's so far
windows, I
away.
don't know.
It's so far away and so blurry.
Yeah.
I would need like sorry, by perpendicular I don't mean like this flat plane, like the wall that it's up against is fine, but we need a floor plane perpendicular, so we need one coming towards the plane.
Okay.
Kind of deal.
Yeah.
And that's the line that's difficult to get. I might be able to get a horizontal line here with the wheels, but getting a line that goes back, like I said, would be pretty difficult.
What about the struts? How would they work into a plane? You know, because they're obviously straight lines, but we wouldn't know if they're tilted, so never mind.
Yeah, and so I have been trying not to line things up too much using the struts because they do kind of displace a little bit. So, yeah.
Interesting.
You know, we don't know that they never. As far as we know, they didn't change the struts, but we don't know they didn't. They could have added dihedral, taken some away, or something like that at some point during the development of the airplane too. So it might be hard to line everything up. There could be changes we didn't hear about, right?
Right.
Just looking at the other pictures, are there any others that show? There's the one that right there above you to the left with Bob Hall standing there has a good shadow. It's not great.
Yes, yeah, this one's got it's got a nice set of geometry in here actually, and I thought about matching this one, but there's just so little of the plane shown in this one that it would be difficult. It only shows one wings, and you can't really tell where the wing ends at the top, and it's kind of it's a little overexposed and difficult to.
And then what about the one on the left of this? Does that have a shadow that would work? A little bit, yeah. That's got a shadow.
It does have a little bit of a shadow that would work. It does have some geometry. It's got some geometry here on the ground. I could use the cement lines for that kind of thing. Presuming that the cement was, cut properly or placed properly. But probably would use more of the building than anything. Yeah. I could go back and do one like this if you wanted, Jim.
I think it's not a bad idea. That strut, looking at that, the rear strut in that, doesn't that look thin?
Yeah,
but then look at the left one. It looks more typical.
Yeah. I just didn't realize how thin it was. I guess that's kind of lined up maybe differently than the other photos. Just you notice something different every time you look at the stuff. Of course, I've been staring at it too much.
Now you'll notice how rough the vertical fin is on this one.
Yeah.
Shows you how quickly they did it and all the intersection fairing that they had to mess with there. And then looks like the horizontal is clearly skinned in that one.
Yeah.
And I noticed that on the previous one we were looking at too. Versus if you go to one picture to the left, that one.
Yeah.
Just the differences in the vertical fin and the horizontal, the intersection fairings.
Yeah, that's actually posed a lot of issues because they did change the tail with that more race friendly fin, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's a pilot friendly fin.
Pilot friendly fin. Okay.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay, well, that's great. Is there anything else you want to talk about while we're just kind of sitting all together, or you feel like you got kind of brought us up to speed now?
I feel like you're up to speed. I hope you're up to speed.
Yep. And you've got a model. Can you show us the current state of the 3D model that you're working on?
Sure thing. Yeah. Let me minimize.
And then we'll let you get back to your day.
Yeah. So the current state right now, this is mostly based on Clements. I still have to go back and do some of the adjustments that we were talking about to adjust it, especially the tail. But I want to make sure those adjustments are done to a really good match. So we're not just adjusting to a bad match and then working with bad variables. Yep. So kind of refining the matches a little bit and then refining the geometry, refining the matches, refining the geometry, and just kind of going back and forth with that. So what I've got here is I've got this model based mostly on the Clements, the fuselage. I've got that little insert we talked about with the canopy right there, and just kind of working my way down along the tail fin right now. And then the next thing I'm gonna kind of hunker down on is gonna be the horizontal stabs. So
Okay.
yeah, that's the plan at least.
And then what about the internals of the airplane? Have you looked at that at all?
We're talking about like the interior chassis and whatnot.
Yeah, the framework. Yeah.
Right. There's a little bit of that kind of roughed out right now.
Yep.
It's mostly based on the photographs you sent me of your chassis. There's some differences between the chassis on the drawings and the chassis in your photos. There's some additional frame, like structural implementations. And so this is kind of a mixture between let me turn on the two-sided lighting so you can kind of see it better. This is kind of a mixture currently between the two.
Yeah.
And it still has a lot of work to be put into it to really match up.
I do have a photo that came in that I'd like to show you if you can give me control again.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, and so the all of our viewers here understand the level of dedication. How many hours do you have into that model at this point?
I don't know. I was kind of scared to think about that.
Okay.
Okay, make host. It's less the amount of hours that are specifically in that model, and more the amount of hours that are in refining the information that we're using to make the model.
Right, and plus you're an expert on this, and what would take me a lifetime, you can do in 10 minutes. So yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So your whole life, you've been working on this model your whole life. You just didn't know
it. Pretty much.
Well, this is a photo I wanted to share with you, which I don't know if you had seen before, but this is a photo we got out of a newspaper that Matt Lawler, our project historian, found for us. And it's the framework, and it doesn't match what we have, and it doesn't match the drawings. It matches it in some ways, but it doesn't exactly match the drawings or the framework we have. And one of the things I think I see a thinner tubing than what it looks like it was called out. And I don't know if there's any way we can use some digital magic to figure out what the size of that tubing is. We have to figure out how big that child is. Maybe.
So there's some interesting things in regard to that. So and I've done some of this before back when I used to do architectural studies. It all comes down to the pixel size, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the pixel size in the image is too large, that's going to be the amount of wiggle room we have in the measurement. And so I think something like this, the pixel size looks relatively large. It could be off by as much as a quarter of an inch to a half inch by the looks of it. Yeah. Well,
at least we can see now what the framework looked like. There's a centerpiece here I don't think is in our framework. We can still decide that there's some better ways to do things. We don't have to have it exactly the same. No one's going to come by at Oshkosh and be able to correct us,
We'd love them to prove us wrong.
That's true. That'd be fine. Well, hopefully not if we built an entire airplane around it. We'd like it to happen now. So please let us know right now if you know of something different. Don't wait.
But by the way, here's a full detailed dimension drawing of Hall Bulldog from Bob Hall.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll get that 3 years from now.
Where have you been?
But I think we have job way easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have enough now. We absolutely have enough. We have way more than I ever thought we'd have. I tell you what, 3 months ago, I did not think we'd have this much stuff, and more stuff is coming in all the time. At some point, we're going to reach a limit. We're kind of getting there to where Matt's exhausted every avenue he has for pictures. And what we're starting to find is he goes to the museum, not we, he does it. He goes to the museum and he asks for everything they have, and the museum returns him stuff we already have. Whereas at the beginning, we had a lot of new stuff. He's just sent me, looks like 40 newspaper clippings, various clippings from around the period. I now can walk through daily stories that were written in the paper, the local papers, about the process of building it and how they announced it. And, Russ Thaw comes by to do a test flight. It's all in the record for us now. It's been out there, but no one collected it before. So we've got more data than anybody probably has ever had before on the airplane, I'm sure, in one place, way more. Mm-hmm. And I think, Tony, we're ready to go. But we do need to make sure that it looks, that when we pose it and we take a picture, we want it to look like the pictures we have in our archive, but we want to be able to explain why it doesn't. Some of these pictures we know are stretched or weird. We got to be able to say, yeah, that picture has some distortion towards the edge. That's why the tail doesn't match up. We just don't want to have any anyone say it's not the real thing, because we want it to be the real thing. On that note, I'm trying very hard to see if there are still some existing pieces of the Bulldog somewhere. We're working very hard to find them. And if we do, if we can get a little piece even, this would no longer be a reproduction. This would be a restoration. And that's, to me, would be really, really exciting. So I want you to know we're working on that as well.
Yeah, that'd be really cool to find.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Josh, thanks a million. Now get back to work. Boss is, I can't believe you're taking time in a podcast. This is personal time,
This is a pet project. You don't get paid for that.
No. I really appreciate it, Josh. You're fantastic to work with. You do a great stuff. I know you want to.
Yeah, super impressive.
Yeah, and I know how excited you get about stuff like this. This is perfect for you. Bring it home. Make a new model. We'll get nice 2D drawings, and we'll be definitive. We'll be able to explain to everybody this is what it was like for the rest of the time. People will know. And that's exciting stuff. So thank you, Tony. Thank you also for being here. What do you have, Tony, real quick, what do you have to do for the rest of the day? What are you building today?
Oh, I am working on a Cessna 182, putting an engine monitor in.
What?
I know. It's one of my good friends at the airport.
Okay.
He
okay, well, lie to us. No, lie to us.
I I do have actually, 2 pit specials, 2 S2Bs in the
there you go.
And then, an S111 and an S1S and another S1S. So I got 5 Pitts I'm
there you go. The Pitts Maniac right there. How's the S111 is the blue one?
Actually, I have 2 S111s going right now.
Oh, wow.
So the blue one is, it's over in Bend. It should be back sometime, I'm betting early next week, with all the finished painting. They did all the striping work. And it's time for final assembly. And that thing's going to be an absolute hot rod. So
that's awesome. Well, next time we do a video, why don't we take some time to show some photos?
Yeah.
Take some photos of this stuff and we'll show people. It's pretty neat stuff. You're a really talented builder. I want them to see that. So, okay. Very good, guys. Thanks a million. We'll see you next time. Now, don't you two actually leave. I'm just saying goodbye to everybody who's watching. That's kind of, okay. See you guys later. Okay. Bye. See you later. Okay. Bye.